You all are doing well. We are currently facing a pandemic, and amidst the tough and unproductive times, we, the medical students from different medical colleges of Nepal, have created a platform where we can learn and grow together as medical students.
Grey is the color that symbolizes the transition between black and white. From knowing nothing, we are at the transition to knowing something. Hence, we have chosen the name the Grey Medicos.
The Grey Medicos organizes interactive teacher-student sessions guiding novice medical students through the clinical approach to various diseases. Our session's main aim is to make medical students learn the art of history taking to reach a proper clinical diagnosis. We explore the boundless world of medical sciences through a student's eye and try to provide the learners with a clear basic concept and explain the simple reasons behind every clinical step.
These guided sessions also prepares us for those questions which are asked in our Viva and furthermore other limitless questions that can arise anytime during our clinical practices.
We believe our sessions can establish a bond between the learners and the presenters and also encourage our learners to come forward and step up for presenting on various topics as it will open doors to limitless benefits.
So, join us in studying together as a team and help us to raise this platform to the next level. Journey to be the better doctors, the Grey Medicos. Thank you very much.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening. Very good evening.
I'm Dr. Manish Kafle. Today I'll be presenting this. I am a first year resident in Universal College of Medical Sciences, Bhairava. It's my great pleasure, and I feel very humble and proud to be presenting in one of the person whose book I have been reading since I have joined my medical college. It's my great pleasure to be presenting with in front of you, sir.
Thank you, Manish. Thank you very much. I love Nepal because I have served in Nepal for 2 years at Dharan. So it's like another home for me. And I always will cherish the memories of the time I spent with my family in Nepal. That was around 2 decades back, around in when it was initial phase of starting of Dharan. So I'm happy that I was instrumental in starting the MD Pediatrics Adolescent Medicine at Dharan. So I have a special attachment, and that's why I agreed immediately whenever the request came. Thank you. You can please go ahead. It's a pleasure to be with all of you.
Thank you, sir.
May I start with the session now? Okay, so namaste and good evening, everyone. I am Achal Burma, a third-year MBBS student from Gandaki Medical College. On behalf of the entire team of the Grey Medicos, I would like to extend a warm welcome to each and everyone present here. The Grey Medicos started with the aim to broaden our knowledge and have active discussions on various topics related to medicine. Is extremely blessed to have the support of the White Army of India in conducting today's event. Our mentor for today is very special and honorable Professor Dr. Piyush Gupta. He is the head of department in University College of Medical Sciences, Delhi, and very well renowned among medical students as the author of many famous books of pediatrics. It is an extreme honor to get this opportunity to hear from you, and we extend a warm welcome to you, sir. Our presenter is Dr. Manish Kafle. He is a junior resident in pediatrics from Universal College of Medical Sciences, Bhairava, Nepal. We welcome you too. And without any further ado, I would like to request Dr. Manish to start with the presentation.
Thank
you,
you.
Achal.
Thank you. So nice of you. Please.
So, can I start now?
Yes, sir.
So today, before starting my presentation, I would like to say that this presentation was made in a much of hurry because we were not actually prepared. We didn't know whether Saw could arrange time for us or not. But when we found out that Saw would arrange time for us, so we made it. It might have a lot of faults or anything, but since Sir is here, we without any we didn't want to lose this opportunity. So though it may have faults, I would like to present it the way it is now.
Please go ahead.
So here is a case of, so I'll be presenting a case of Mr. Shital Bhatmagar, a 10-year-old boy, resident of Rukum, Nepal, Hindu by religion, and admitted to pediatric wards 3 days back via OPD. And all the informations were gathered through by his father and some information by the patient himself. There was no language barrier as they spoke Nepali fluently and the reliability was satisfactory. The patient presented with chief complaints of passage of red colors urine since 5 days, decrease in frequency of urination since 3 days, and facial puffiness noticed since 2 days.
Okay, so I think we start from here, or you want to narrate the whole thing and then I should start, or you want me to have discussion in between the slides? Whatever format you will prefer, it's okay with me.
So I think we will we'll go in between the slides. So if in chief complaint we missed something, so we can know it there.
Okay, okay. So Manish, excellent. You have presented the chief complaints. Number one, whenever you say you don't use the word since, because when you're using since, it is very exact. Since 23rd December, 2 p.m. Okay. So for all these complaints, we always use the word for. So passage of this for, decrease for, and facial puffiness for last 2 days. Okay, that is one thing, just a small grammatical thing. Then coming to the, whenever you make a chief complaint, the first question the examiner would ask you, he might ask you, evolve or how to present your history of present illness depends major on how you have analyzed your chief complaints. It's very important to present what you can say are your broad hypothesis based on these chief complaints. So always you should make a broad hypothesis just on the basis of complaint, nothing else. Because it is very vague. It will include each and everything connected with red urine, frequency of urination, and facial puffiness. Because if you include each and everything, only then you will be able to ask questions or like a negative history that will rule out several causes which are not there in this child. Okay. So can I have your broad hypothesis here?
So with these complaints, the child can only with these chief complaints, we can say that since urinary tract infections are very common in children, we can think that this could be a urinary tract infection leading to some sort of acute renal failure. We can think that for this chief complaint without asking further of questions.
Now, Manish, that's what I want. Because now this is a basic difference that you have. What you have presented is not a broad hypothesis. You remember my words. What you have presented is a very specific disease. That means with these complaints, you will not think of anything other than the UTI. Isn't it? I want you to think broad. Anybody else can answer? If anybody else can give me the broad hypothesis, then I will. If not, then I will. I'll wait for a minute or two to let anybody else. Or Manish, if you can, if you have any other idea how to present the broad hypothesis. See, what is the aim of broad hypothesis? The broad hypothesis should be able to tell us which system is involved. That is most important. Or which system could be involved. What could be the possible etiologies, and what could be the possible complications, and what could be the possible pathologies. So all these are important, and all these need to be excluded by your negative. Because I have read the case that you have shared, because there are several things which we have not asked negative history. Why? Because we never thought about them, that they could also be a possibility. So can you now tell me a broad hypothesis, or anybody else?
So with these chief complaints, the system that is most likely to be involved is the genitourinary system, because passes of red color urine, decreased frequency of urination, and facial puffiness. The puffiness which starts from the face.
So okay, it is fine. We don't need to repeat the complaints. So one is that you said that it could be involvement of urinary system. Is that all?
Yes, sir.
Why can't this be involvement of liver or hepatobiliary system? Why can't this be involvement of a hematological system?
So it can.
That is because we close our mind to the diagnosis. In the beginning, we say this is a case discussion of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. So we will never think beyond post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. You understand? This can also be liver. You can have a coagulopathy in liver. So there can be red-colored urine. There can be edema, and there can be a decreased frequency of urination and edema in urine. So in a hepatic, this can, maybe it is not red color. It is a bright or the dark yellow. So it is appearing like red. So it could all be related to hepatic. Or maybe the child is having some hemolysis, and due to hemolysis, there is red-colored urine. And due to this hemolysis, again, there is formation of some crystals and all, which are causing decrease in urination and facial puffiness. This can very well be an autoinflammatory or autoimmune hemolytic anemia. Why not? This can very well be malaria. You get my point. So you cannot close your mind to only one thing. You have to keep it broad. Like I'll tell you, I'll just give a brief synopsis. If you say, number one, it is an acute illness. That is the first thing, that is the hypothesis. Okay. So you have to first commit whether this is an acute illness or whether this is a chronic illness. So the problem is very acute. The problem, yes, somebody says CVS involved. Yes, CVS, how CVS could be involved? Yes, edema can be because of CVS, and red-colored urine. How will you explain in a CVS involvement? I don't know. Maybe you have, okay, maybe you have a bacterial endocarditis in mind, but again, in bacterial endocarditis, you have microscopic hematuria, and it is not a red-colored urine. I think I have answered that. But yes, now, firstly, it is an acute problem because the symptoms started only 5 days back. And the child was passing red-colored urine. Now you think and list all the conditions where a child would pass red-colored urine. Can you just enumerate causes of red-colored urine?
So it could be urinary tract infection. It could be due to trauma, any sort of trauma. It could be due to obstruction.
I am not asking an etiology. I am asking why the urine is red. Etiology will be later. What are the things that will cause a red color of urine? Start thinking from that point. Are you getting my question?
Sorry, sir, I didn't get it.
What are the components that can cause red color of the urine, that can turn the urine into red color? Normally, urine is pale yellow in color. Why
Yes,
should it become red? What makes it red? What can make it red?
Any pathology related to the physiology?
Manish, again, you are going to pathology or etiology. Somebody, Janak, has said that, yes, very good. Now the answers are coming. One has written RBC, where it could be hematuria that can make it red. It can be hemoglobinuria. Another answer has come, which can make it red. What else? Can you think of any other pigments? Rifampicin, yes, maybe some drugs like rifampicin, phenolphthalein, medications, okay. Then maybe other pigments. Think of myoglobin. It could be myoglobinuria. Think of porphyria. It could be porphyrins. So there are so many things. It's such a broad hypothesis. That means when you are taking the history, you will have to rule out, or you will have to differentiate between hematuria, hemoglobinuria, myoglobinuria, porphyria, and you will have to take the history of drugs. You will also have to take the history of certain foods, such as beetroots, blackberry, rhubarb. So these are the foods that can cause urine red. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Why? So you also understand why this analysis was important.
Yes.
Because now hematuria, there are several conditions. Hematuria can be because of glomerular origin. Hematuria can be because of non-glomerular origin. This is a broad hypothesis. If it is glomerular, I will have to rule out glomerulonephritis. I should also think of IgA nephropathy. I should also think of systemic lupus erythematosus. I should also think of HSP, Wagner granulomatosis, Alpert syndrome, hemolytic anemia, hemolytic uremic syndrome, or familial hematuria. These are the various things that should come to my mind when I think of hematuria of glomerular origin. So I have to rule them out. Next step will be, when I confirm that this is hematuria, I will like to know this hematuria is of glomerular origin or this is of non-glomerular origin. Can you name some non-glomerular origin hematuria? One you have already mentioned as UTI. So it could be UTI, it could be trauma, it could be renal calculi, it could be renal vein thrombosis, it could be interstitial nephropathy, it could be some coagulopathy, it could be tuberculosis, it could be Wilms syndrome, it could be neuroblastoma. There's so many things. So all these things should be hovering in your mind whenever you find a child with red colored urine. Don't close your mind to only post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Don't close your mind to only UTI, because in clinical practice, you have to keep your mind very open. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Any questions there? Anybody wants to ask any question? So these are all the things. The second is decrease in frequency of urination. Now here I am not clear. You said decrease in frequency. Does that mean the amount of urine was okay?
So actually, the child, the informant, he said that recently I haven't seen him going to toilet so many times, because before that he used to go to toilets multiple times. Like, but now he's not only 1 to 2 times a day. He's going for
Okay.
that. His father was also
Perfect.
one of
Perfect.
his
So the father is not clear about the amount of urine. He just knows that the frequency has, he's going for urination less times. And
Yes.
then you have facial puffiness for last 2 days. Now you combine all these three things. That means you could have, if it is hematuria, or it is, if it is hematuria, renal system is involved. If it is hemoglobinuria, Then you can have hemolytic anemia. That means you can have involvement of hematological system, or you can have a multi-system involvement like autoimmune disorder. You can also have some kind of vasculitis which is producing this. You can also have facial puffiness. So facial puffiness with urinary involvement. You can have edema. किससे होता है? You can have renal involvement, you can have hepatic involvement, you can have cardiovascular involvement. So with these complaints, you have to rule out involvement of cardiovascular system, you have to rule out involvement of hepatobiliary system, you have to rule out involvement of hematological system, you have to rule out a multisystemic involvement, and then only you will become, or you will be saying that this is probably renal in origin. Okay, so always analyze your chief complaints. After your chief complaints, spend at least 10 minutes in analyzing these chief complaints. Only then you will be able to take a good negative history. We go on to the next slide. So I have so many possibilities as of now. You know, I am not closing my mind to only renal. I have kept 5 systems which could present a similar way. And in 5 systems, more than 50 etiologies or causes which can present in a similar manner. Okay.
So according to the informant, the child was apparently well 16 days back. Then
we stop, Manish, sorry. We stop there. Can anybody tell me what is the wrong in the first sentence? According to informant, child was apparently well 16 days back. Manish, I said there is something wrong here. My patient was, nay, it is not semantics. It is not semantics. It is about the content. Don't go into grammar, etc. Any other thought? 6 days. 6 days back. Meghna. Very good. Very good. So see, in the chief complaint, he is saying that the chief complaints are, can you go to the previous slide? Chief complaints. Previous slide. Yeah. Passage of red colored urine 5 days. Whenever you have this chief complaint, what is my impression? My impression is that the child was well 5 days back. Only the child is unwell for last 5 days. And now in the next slide, come to the next slide. Here you are saying that the child was well 16 days back. So there is a mismatch. This mismatch cannot happen, my dear friend. Okay, always remember. Now you may have a problem that this child had some pharyngitis. Okay. That's what you want to say, that 16 days back, the child had some fever and sore throat. So there was a history of acute pharyngitis. So you have to include, you have to see whether this pharyngitis was a part of the course of this illness, this whole illness, or no. You think this is part of this illness or this is something separate?
This is the part of this illness.
This is a part of this illness. And this is, if this is a part of this illness, this will be one of the chief complaints. What does that mean? That your chief complaint will start with an episode of fever with sore throat 16 days back, lasting for 5 to 7 days. Okay? And then the second complaint will be red colored urine for last 5 days, and third, fourth will be like that. Now, how does that change your hypothesis? This changes your hypothesis totally. Because now you say the child had an acute febrile illness with sore throat around 2 weeks back, and in between the child was asymptomatic. That means something has happened in between, which has led to the present complaints, that is red urine, decreased urinary output, and facial puffiness. It becomes very clear. Now your cascade or your hypothesis is narrowed rather than a broad. That now you will think of only those causes where pharyngitis precedes renal involvement by 2 weeks. Okay. So this becomes very narrow now that you are excluding most of the other causes. That means you are hinting probably at some glomerulonephritis and maybe some illness which is preceding or which is causing this glomerulonephritis. You get my point? So your history of presenting illness is okay. You have to start from 16 days back, but in the chief complaints, you have to revisit your chief complaints. There should never be a mismatch between your chief complaints and your chronology of your presenting illness. Okay, now you can go ahead. Please read it so that others can.
So since fever was very long back, 15 days back, so we thought that maybe it should not be included in the chief complaint. But now we get it that should also be included.
I give you an example, Manish, and to the rest of the students. You must have heard of nephrotic syndrome. Okay. So what happens in a nephrotic syndrome? Nephrotic syndrome, a child will present with edema all over the body for last 5 days. Okay.
Yes.
But when you take the history, you find that the child had similar episodes 3 months back, another episode 1 year back, and another episode 1.5 years back. So how will you present this history? There are 2 ways. One way, like you presented, that edema all over the body for last 5 days. And the other is recurrent episodes of edema with diminished urine outputs since last 1 year. Which one is better?
Second one is better.
Why?
Because once we mention the recurrent episodes, we narrow our thinking to because we narrow our thinking to a particular disease.
Yeah, not only narrow, but you can pinpoint that, yes, now I am thinking of an illness which is recurrent in nature, which is remitting in nature. In between, there are symptom-free intervals. Okay. And what is that illness? Obviously, this kind of illness cannot be a acute glomerulonephritis. This is obvious that you are dealing with a nephrotic syndrome. This is so if you present a good history, good chief complaints, the diagnosis is there in front of you. In fact, 95% of diagnosis is always made on history alone. Examination contributes little to the diagnosis. Okay. So I hope it is clear now what all to include in the chief complaints.
Yes.
You can read it if you have my book on clinical methods. Read the 2nd chapter, and all this has been explained very well, that how to present your chief complaint or how to write your chief complaint and how to write a broad hypothesis. Please go ahead.
According to the informant, the child was apparently well 16 days back. Then child developed fever, which was acute on onset, intermittent, maximum recorded temperature being 102 degrees Fahrenheit, persisting for around 4 days. The fever was relieved on taking oral paracetamol. Then it reoccurred after 6 to 2 hours after the dose fades off. There was no aggravating factors for fever. There was no diurnal variation. The fever was associated with difficulty in swallowing.
Okay, perfect.
Difficulty in swallowing was gradual on onset, gradually progressive over 2 days to both solid and liquid foods, relieved after intake of oral antibiotics over 5 to 7 days.
So what does that lead to? This history, what does that mean? Or what is your interpretation of this history?
So this means that the child had fever and difficulty in swallowing, which could be some sort of upper respiratory tract infection, pharyngitis, tonsillitis. It could be anything involving the upper respiratory tract.
Very good, very good. So this was a febrile illness, sudden febrile acute illness, and most probably infective in nature. The infection was, or it indicated the infection of the upper respiratory tract because there was difficulty in swallowing. So probably it could be pharyngitis, it could be tonsillitis, it could be tonsillopharyngitis, it could be laryngitis, but unlikely because you have not indicated any change in the voice. And then this was, or what else? What else it could be? Can it be anything else other than acute tonsillitis or acute pharyngitis? Important, very important cause. You should all, that's why I said narrow nahi karne ka, hamesha broad sochne ka. Think of anything else.
Could be croup.
Okay, croup, you can say. What else? Croup will have stridor. There was no stridor. There was only difficulty in swallowing. Croup will not have difficulty in swallowing. Croup is laryngotracheobronch. Diphtheria, Janak. Very good. Excellent. Why can't it be diphtheria? Diphtheria is so common now in India, Nepal, and other countries even at 10 years of age. Okay. So maybe if this was diphtheria, maybe you are looking at post-diphtheria glomerulonephritis. Why not? What are the complications of diphtheria? 3 major systems which are complicated in diphtheria. Manish. Or anybody from the audience, just write in the chat box. 3 systems which can be involved with diphtheria other than the local manifestations.
It could involve the cardiovascular system.
Cardiovascular, respiratory, so respiratory is the primary involvement. So respiratory, I will not take that. Yes, cardiovascular. What in cardiovascular? You have myocarditis primarily after diphtheria. Myocard, nerve damage, very good. So you have neurological, that means you have polyneuropathy after diphtheria, CNS involvement. And the third is that you have renal involvement after diphtheria. So this can very well fit into a renal complication of diphtheria also, the whole cascade, rather than only thinking of a streptococcal infection. You get my point? So that means, how could you have differentiated diphtheria here? The sickness, the child is very sick in diphtheria, number 1. Number 2, you call it a bull neck. So that means you have swelling in the exteriors also, usually. There could be problem in taking, in breathing. So these are the points that could, or a history of diphtheria in one of the siblings. So these things were important to differentiate between diphtheria and a common streptococcal infection. Next. So we come to the next slide. Can we go to the next slide?
Yes, sir. So nearly after 10 days of fever and difficulty in swallowing, child noticed passes of red color urine, 2 to 3 episodes initially. Now the passes of red color urine is during every episode of micturition. On further inquiry, the patient himself also gives a passes of brownish red color urine, 2 to 3 episodes. Now the child also has decreased frequency of urinations 3 days, gradual on onset. Previously, child used to pass urine 4 times a day. Now the child passes urine only 1 to 2 times a day. Then the parents noticed facial puffiness, first noticed by the mother when the child woke up in the morning 2 days back, mostly around the periorbital region. Facial puffiness gradually decreased as the day passed by, but it became more concerning to the parents when the child again developed facial puffiness the next day, and the facial puffiness was more pronounced than the previous day.
Okay. Is that all in the history of present illness?
So this is one slide. So if we can there is something that could have been more interesting. So this is all of the history of present in this. Now we have written some negative histories that we thought that it should be ruled out.
Okay, let us recall how many causes that we listed in the broad hypothesis you have taken a negative history of.
So we have mostly taken
Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. No history of burning micturition for. Next slide, please. Don't change the slide now. No history of burning micturition is for ruling out what?
for ruling out mostly urinary tract infections.
No history of frequent painful attempts at micturition, ruling out what?
Any obstruction, bladder stones, which will lead to hematuria.
No history of poor urinary streams.
That would be any causes of like posterior urethral valves.
Okay, and then you say urgency intake of drugs, coloring agent in food, swelling around lumbar region for.
So it could be for any Wills tumor or anything that would.
Okay. Bleeding from nose or hemoptysis for.
This was actually for any hematological cause. That child does not have any bleeding from any other sites. That he's just passing red color urine only.
Okay. Now anybody, although all of you have listened to our broad hypothesis, can you just tell me what all our negative history he has missed? Have you ruled out cardiac involvement? There are no complaints or no negative history for cardiac involvement. Have you ruled out liver involvement? There is no such history, negative history, which you have told about liver involvement. Isn't it? You thought of those systems also, but there are no negative history of these systems. Then you have no negative history of, see, it is important not only for which systems are involved. Negative history is also important for knowing the severity of the disease or the complication of the disease. Suppose this is a post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. What is the most important complication that occurs in PSGN? What is the most important and dreadful complication of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis?
Increased blood pressure leading to seizures can occur.
So where is the negative history of seizures? Where is the negative history of encephalopathy? You are absolutely right. Hypertension leading to encephalopathy. So I would definitely like to know whether the child had any seizures or not. There is a term as posterior reversible encephalopathy. So I like to know whether the child had hypertension or not. I can't see any history of headache, vomiting for hypertension. So all these histories are missing. Basically, hypertension, how will you ask? The child will have headache, obviously. So all these histories are lacking. What else? As I said, I would like to ask about any history of jaundice. Okay, any history of dyspnea, any history of palpitation, any history of, then we come to the vasculitis syndrome. So any history of rash over body, any history of petechiae, any history of joint involvement, any history of muscle involvement, any history of lump or the hematuria, previous hematurias. There are a lot of things you have missed in this history. This is only occurring because you never made a broad hypothesis. And had you made a broad hypothesis, you would have definitely asked history of negative history about this. Okay? Because if we thought of glomerular hematuria, we also thought of it could be SLE, it could be hemolytic uremic syndrome. So we need to ask rash, joint involvement, and other things. Okay. So negative history is basically for 6 things. 1, origin or system. Which system is involved? That means you have to rule out other systems. Number 2, which organ is involved? If you can rule out other system, then you have to come to the renal system. Then you have to be sure whether this is glomerular origin or non-glomerular origin. So how will you ascertain from the history that this is glomerular or non-glomerular? Then will come those history, negative history. The third is you will find out the etiology. So for that etiology, you will have to take negative history, then pathology, complications, and severity. So these are the 6 things for which a negative history needs to be taken. And in this, there are negative history only about there is no negative history which can rule out other systems. There is no negative history which can differentiate between a glomerular or non-glomerular hematuria. On the etiology, pathology, there is something like you have said, drugs, coloring agents, and swelling around Wilms tumor, trauma. So there is something about etiology there, but again, nothing about complications or severity of the disease. So I would say this is grossly lacking. So now I'm sure all of you must have understood the importance of making a broad hypothesis, because the rest of your history rests only on broad hypothesis. I don't know how many undergraduate students are there in the discussion and how many postgraduate students are there. When you write a history for undergraduate in the undergraduate days, primarily what you do, whatever the patient tells you, you translate it from Nepali to English and you tell the examiner. But it is not the case when a postgraduate is presenting this history. In the postgraduate, it is 80% is your effort. You build up the story based on what the parents tell you. Can we go to the next slide? Any queries till that point? You have also not mentioned any history of edema anywhere, or swelling over the abdomen, swelling over the feet, because you only said there was history of the puffiness of the face, but I don't see any negative history of this, even the edema also. Then very important, when you are having hematuria, I will definitely like to know whether this is a painful or a painless hematuria. That part is also not taken care of here. So with this history, I'm afraid it will be difficult to make or to come to a conclusion. Other than that, we know that this is a case of PSG, and so obviously we will make a diagnosis of PSG. The worst thing that can happen when you are presenting a case, that if you know the diagnosis, that is the worst thing that can happen. So it is always best that you don't know the diagnosis, treat it like a virgin case. Okay, next slide.
So the next slide is of past history. There was no history of similar illness.
Okay, past history. Anything? Why do you want to know the past history?
So for repeated episodes of if the child had repeated episodes of passes of similar repeated episodes of hematuria previously.
Okay. So what will it indicate? Repeated episodes?
So repeated episodes could be any cause. There could be, it could be tumors or any chronic cases. It could be abdominal renal tuberculosis may also lead to the repeated episodes of hematuria.
Renal tuberculosis takes almost 15 to 20 years to develop. In a 10-year-old child, don't think of renal tuberculosis. You should, what else you should think of? Think of calculus. Yes, calculi. Think of IgA nephropathy. These are the, think of Alpert. These are the more common things. Or you can think of familial hematuria, if you have heard of that syndrome. Okay, which we know as thin basement membrane disease. There are two kinds of familial. One is benign hematuria, non-familial benign hematuria. The other is familial hematuria or thin basement membrane disease. So you can think about those. Okay, let's go ahead.
Families.
Okay, fine. Next, we have discussed about the family history. Here, family history of other chronic illness is not important. Family history of hematuria is definitely important here. No history of hypertension in whom? In the child or in the family?
In the family, sir.
Okay. So how would, suppose if there was history of hypertension in the family, then what would you have thought of? And how will medications in the family member would affect the child? Your last point, no history of any medication in the family member.
So maybe the child had taken any drugs that could have led to hematuria.
Accidentally.
Accidentally.
Okay. Got it. Chalo. Next. I think we can leave this. Antenatal doesn't have much significance here. Let's go to the next slide. There is a question how to differentiate the glomerular versus non-glomerular hematuria. See, you have to know the causes of glomerular and non-glomerular hematuria. A non-glomerular hematuria is UTI. So again, you will have symptoms like he asked for urgency, frequency, burning micturition, and abdominal lump. You can have hypercalciuria, renal calculi, so history of renal stones, or you can have a history of trauma, history of heavy exercise. You can, all these can lead to, or a coagulopathy, that means history of bleeding from other sites, any abdominal tumor. All this will point to a non-glomerular cause of hematuria. Okay, I think this is how you can differentiate between glomerular and non-glomerular. And if it is glomerular, there is nothing to suggest non-glomerular. If it is glomerular, then you have to know whether this is glomerulonephritis, whether this is IgA nephropathy. IgA nephropathy, how will you differentiate? It will have recurrent episodes of hematuria. Whether it could be HSP, hinox-schönlein purpura, presence of rash. If it could be SLE, presence of rash, joint involvement, again, typically muscle involvement. Whether it could be any familial hematuria, again, involvement of family members. So one by one step take. History is very important. See, dissecting history is just like, I prefer to call it or like dissect it like Sherlock Holmes. It's like solving a detective puzzle. You are detective and you are trying to find out who is the murderer. It's very interesting if you take all those points into account and then you find you gather your clues one by one, and you are ruling out the motives. You see the motives also. So you see so many things, and then you come to a conclusion that this could be the thing. Okay, Manish, we have a short of time, so let's skip the antenatal history. This is not important here. Birth history, chhod do. Postnatal also you can leave. Development was normal. Immunization, yes. Let's come to immunization history. I will definitely like to know about the DPT vaccine. So how did you ensure, because we kept diphtheria as one of the possibilities. So you have to tell here in detail how many doses of DPT. What are you having in Nepal now? Is it DPT vaccination or pentavalent for primary vaccination?
Now, recently it has been changed to pentavalent.
Okay, so previously it was DPT only.
Yes, sir.
So how do you know? Did the child have a card?
Uh, so when asked, they said that because here in Nepal, in every district or in every hospital, they provide a card for every vaccination. So they said that we were vaccinated the child with every doses in the time they were called. So that way we ensured that he was vaccinated.
Okay, but you should state there. And what about the boosters?
Boosters, yes. Boosters only.
So until and unless the patient party or the parents can provide you the card, okay, you say that the parents have said that they got it all immunized, but it could not be confirmed as the vaccination card, they were not carrying the vaccination card. Okay, so that's how you should present this. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay, now here, only thing, one point I like to make. You said he currently has adequate calorie intake. So whenever you say that, you have to provide what is his current calorie intake and what is the current protein intake. So you need to calculate that and provide them simultaneously and compare with what is recommended at this age so that you know what is the calorie gap or non-calorie gap. Next. ठीक है, आगे चलिए. Socioeconomic history also I think we can leave for the moment. Not much relevant in this case. Anthropometry, it's a 10-year-old child. Okay, so your BMI is 19.2 between 25th and 50th percentile as IAP BMI chart. Perfect. So the child is having a normal nutritional status. Next slide. Why was this child having an IV cannula?
So because the child was referred from the district hospital where he was previously taking treatment, he was referred from that. So he presented with IV cannula.
What is your impression, or what is your analysis? Why the child was given IV cannula for what? Which drug? Was the child being administered IV fluids or for drugs? Cannula kiske liye hoga?
So since he had decreased urine output, mostly there they had been mostly they were provided IV fluids.
But you usually have fluid overload in PSG, yes, and you don't give, yes, IV fluids.
But in there, because in very rural areas.
What else? What could have been the right drug which could have been administered through the cannula?
For this child, the right drug would have any.
Hypertension होगा तो hypertension के लिए क्या दिया cannula से क्या देना होगा?
So any diuretic.
So which is the most common diuretic you give?
Lasix.
So, furosemide, yes.
Furosemide.
Okay, fine. So the child is not in any distress or pain. What particular distress you will look for? You are looking for LVH, left ventricular failure, LVF. Okay, so you have to tell us here that there are no features of LVF, whatever features you look for. So you should know what are the features of LVF in examination, and the child is not left ventricular failure. That is very important to know. When child is not having left ventricular failure, number one, and the child is not having any CNS manifestations or in encephalopathy because of hypertension. These two things are very important to be told in the examination. Temperature is okay, pulse rate is okay, respiratory rate is okay, blood pressure is elevated, saturation is fine. Okay, next slide. Edema. No, whatever is present should come at the top, not at the bottom. Firstly, positive things and then the negative things. Periorbital edema. And where else did you look for edema?
So lower limbs and the sacral region.
Did you just look for the edema, or did you palpate or check for the edema also in the lower extremities, pedal edema?
So we checked for the edema in the lower limbs, but child had, it was just the beginning of illness, so it was just around the face only.
Okay, next slide. So there is only edema, nothing else. Again, this head-to-toe examination is not really important. It's not really needed in all the cases. Why would I examine the head normal in shape and size? You say periorbital swelling, perfect, and the rest of the head-to-toe examination was normal. Pharynx here is important. So these are the three things which are important here: eyes, pharynx, and neck. The other you can simply say they are normal. There is no need to detail all this. Preauricular pits, skin tags, they are important only when you are thinking of a congenital malformation of the urinary tract. Next. So there is nothing else. Kidneys you palpated bimanually, urinary bladder not palpable, genitalia okay, groin okay. Next. Now this is coming in a slightly disjointed manner, because this systemic examination inspection will come first, and because you put the slide of kidney first, that is incorrect. Okay, so that will come when you are palpating. So firstly there will be inspection, next will be palpation, and under the palpation you will tell us about liver, spleen, and kidneys. You got it, Manish?
Yes.
Okay, next. So this all is palpation. Percussion, no fluid was noticed. What is the sign that you do for minimal fluid in the abdomen? How do you elicit presence of minimal fluid in the abdomen? Can anybody? Prasiddha Bhatta is saying podal sign. It's not podal, it's puddle. P-U, yeah, puddle sign. Oh, I got several answers. Puddle sign. What is puddle sign? Okay, so read about it. Those who have answered must be knowing. Puddle is a small puddle of fluid, you can say, and you elicit, you put the child in knee chest position. Okay, and in the knee chest position, you percuss the child on the umbilicus. And if this is dull, it says a puddle sign is positive. If it is resonant, then puddle sign is negative. So that means there is no minimal fluid in the abdomen. Okay. So we say, we presume that there was no fluid. Next slide. Is that all? Are there more slides, or? I think that's all.
That's all.
Okay. So now can you summarize your case? The next is that you will have to summarize your case and give a differential diagnosis. No, you can stop. Your slides are not needed now. I think we have all seen these slides. You just summarize your case now and give your differential diagnosis. And how will you manage this case? So these are the next three questions, obviously.
So this was a case of 10-year-old male who presented from Rolpa with chief complaints of passes of red color urine since 5 days, facial puffiness, and decreased frequency of urination, with no other significant findings except for facial puffiness was noted. So that's the overall summary for this case.
See, a summary has to, I'll again say this summary is grossly inadequate. You have forgotten that episode of pharyngitis. Isn't that important?
Yes, sir, that was important.
So it should come in the summary. The negative history of urinary tract infection, negative history of coagulopathy, negative history of, again, joint swelling, rash, etc. There can be a line on negative history where you can say 7, 8, 10 negative history, whatever you had, because that will, there is no history of jaundice, no history of palpitation, dyspnea. There is no history of seizures, encephalopathy, altered sensorium. There is no history of joint involvement. There is no history of bleeding from other side. See, these 8 or 10 points rule out so many things. So you straight away land onto a glomerular cause of hematuria. And then you say on examination, the child was conscious, well-oriented. Summary means it's a total summary of the case, not only of the history. So the child was well-oriented, the child was conscious, sitting comfortably, and was having, the vitals were stable, there was no distress, but the child had hypertension, the blood pressure was 130/90, and the child had periorbital puffiness. The rest of the systemic examination was normal. So that is your summary of the case. Okay. So now you analyze or give your differential diagnosis. So I'll give it for you because it appears that maybe you have not. Have you prepared, Manish? What is your differential diagnosis based on this summary?
So we thought that we will be discussing only on the history part. So we didn't, I didn't prepare much about the differential and treatment management.
Okay. Okay.
So because I was told that it will be discussing mostly upon the history, how to write a proper history for such kind of case.
Okay. So I think we have discussed about the history. So that part, maybe next time if we meet, and you will take care of those parts which we discussed in the history.
Yes.
So I think we are thorough with the history. But whenever you are presenting a case, don't restrict yourself to history alone. You should always go to differential diagnosis and how you will manage. Now in this child, obviously we will think that this child had a pharyngitis, and this pharyngitis led to some modulation, immune modulation, and most probably glomerulonephritis. So this could be a post-diphtheritic glomerulonephritis also. This could be a post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis also. At the same time, we can not rule out a membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis also, because this will depend only on the course of the disease. Whether it is simple glomerulonephritis, that means, or it is a membranoproliferative or membranous nephropathy. Also, we should keep a differential diagnosis, or maybe it is the first episode of IgA nephropathy. It could be the systemic disorders should also be kept in mind, and some cystic renal disease or also should be kept in mind in differential diagnosis. How will we investigate this child? The most important investigation will be first of all that you do is a urine examination, a urine analysis. You look for RBCs, you look for red cell cast, you look for dysmorphic RBCs, you look for myoglobinuria, okay, and then you look for after the urine, you do also a urine culture. You look for blood urea, LFT, blood urea, creatinine, and serum electrolytes. Then you also look what are the important investigations. You do the blood counts. You do a urea, creatinine, sodium, potassium, calcium, albumin. Then you will also do a, as I said, urine analysis. You will do a 24-hour urinary protein. You will also do a throat culture. Okay. Then you will also do a ASLO titer, anti-DNase titer. You will also do anti-nuclear antibodies, C3, C4. Okay. And maybe if the child does not respond, at present, there is no indication of renal biopsy. But if the child doesn't respond, then we may have to do a renal biopsy to rule out a membranoproliferative or other causes of this thing. Okay. Now coming to what could be how will you treat this? So most important is this child is having hypertension. So firstly, I will go treat for hypertension. Maybe some salt restriction will do. We'll treat hypertension with usually with the loop diuretic that initially you use furosemide, 2 milligram per kg intravenously or oral divided into 2 doses. Then subsequently, if it still doesn't get controlled, you may have to put the child on long-term nifedipine or calcium channel blockers, or maybe angiotensin ACE inhibitors and ACE receptor blockers are usually avoided. You don't use them in post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis because they may cause reduction in GFR. And if it is an encephalopathy, you should have used sodium nitroprusside. Usually it's a self-limiting disease. The hematuria subsides, and if it does not subside, there is a problem. Hypertension prognosis in case of PSGN is very good. It's an acute hypertension only. Somebody has asked this question, acute hypertension only, and it gradually subsides within a week or 2 weeks. So it's not, doesn't persist. It's not a long-standing hypertension at all. As I said, it's a self-remitting disease on its own. You never need steroids. You don't need any other immunomodulating agents like any immunoglobulins, etc. But yes, you have to rule out other causes and keep a tab for that. That means you have to look for IgA nephropathy, vasculitis, and lupus nephritis, etc. And if there is proteinuria also, then you have to think, because if it is associated proteinuria, that severe proteinuria or even moderate, that does not make it a PSGN. PSGN only has mild proteinuria and does not have severe proteinuria. Yes. AKI risk in PSGN. ये तो मेरा वाइवा ले रहे हैं. AKI usually, yes, you can have sometimes patients who have hyperkalemia, patients who may have acid-base imbalance, patient who may have fluid overload, severe uremia, who are not responding to drug therapy can have AKI. But the risk, I'm not remembering the exact incidence of AKI in PSGN, but it is very low. It is not high at all. It is not at high at all. And if such things occur, then you may have to go for RRT. That is a renal replacement therapy, maybe dialysis or hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis, which is indicated in these indications, and maybe a renal biopsy also. But that PSGN, when all these things occur, don't think of PSGN. Then you think of some other cause other than PSGN. PSGN is by nature self-resolving disorder.
So I have a simple question. So for example, a child developed PSGN at the age of 5. So is it possible that at that episode he gets completely recovered, and again at the age of 11, 12, he can have another episode of PSGN? Or
unlikely, highly unlikely. It doesn't recur as that's a major difference with nephrotic syndrome. Okay, so if there are no more questions, can we call it a day? Yeah, thank you so much for having that stimulating round of discussion. I'm sure you all will understand the importance of one thing I need to highlight here, the importance of making a broad hypothesis at the end of your chief complaints only. If you do that, I'm sure the rest of the things fall in place automatically. Thank you very much.
Welcome, sir. So next time we will try to make whenever you have time, we will make a broad discussion up to investigations and treatment for any other case, and we will make it. This time we couldn't present it properly.
No discussing on investigations, and then management would have taken another 1 hour or so.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Have a nice time. Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, sir. So before you leave, we have a small token of love for you. So please, would you mind staying for 2 minutes?
Sure.
So I request Ayusha to please present the token of love.
Achal, where are you? You are also at Bhairava?
No, sir, I'm in Pokhara.
You are at Pokhara. Oh, good.
So this is a small token of love from our side.
So
And
lovely.
lastly,
So lovely. I'm really blessed. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
it was so enlightening to hear from you today, and our minds are very clear that about the importance of taking broad hypothesis and not limiting ourselves, after checking the diagnosis and presenting the history that way. So we also would like to hear some last words from you. How did you like today's session? What would you like to say to us?
No, it was good. And your enthusiasm is really infectious. And people were answering from the participants were also not idle. They were listening and they were answering, and all the right answers were coming from the participants. So I'm sure maybe hopefully when things are better, I would come to Nepal and maybe we can meet in physical and have a class together and have a good time. Thank you. Thank you once again.
So much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
sir.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I request Ayusha to present Dr. Manish certificate also. And Dr. Manish, would you like to add some words?
I'm really thankful to the Grey Medicos for providing me this opportunity to present. But I would like to say I was not much prepared for this because we are having because our senior, she's not here. Lots of things are happening here, so I was not much prepared for this. Still, they told me, so that I couldn't deny them. So I next time I will make a better presentation, and whenever sir has time, we will do it in a much better way next time.
Nay, thank you, Manish. You should always present and make a habit not to be afraid of your mistakes, because only those who work make mistakes. Those who don't work, they will never make mistakes. And you learn only when you make mistakes. So it's excellent that you could present. And I really appreciate that you could present despite your several limitations.
Now, I
Thank
would
you.
quickly request Doctor to take a few words.
Sir was absolutely right, Achal Verma. Dr. Manish, you have done really well. Okay, because of your presentation, all of us could learn. These are the common mistakes made by, especially by the undergraduates. So if you are prepared very well, like a PG and presented, we had very less things to learn in detail. Okay, if you had answered everything, there was very less chances for us to learn. Okay, so in a way, it was good only so that we had an extensive discussion and a learning from sir. Please, dear friends, take it from me. This is a wonderful golden opportunity for all of us to learn directly from the legend. Maybe that only that not just UCMS Delhi students are fortunate enough to learn directly from sir, but also UCMS Nepal now got this opportunity to learn directly from sir. Really, so all the students all over India, our intention is all the students all over India, Nepal. There were students from Bangladesh also, sir. From today, sir. Sir, today there were some students from even Bangladesh.
Okay,
Like
great,
one
great.
AKI risk factor, she is from Bangladesh actually. So, so this is a wonderful opportunity for all the three countries students to learn uniformly from a legend who is the authority in his field. So students may be good, but we may not get a interested teacher in our college to teach us. So, but here in Grey Medicos platform or in White Army platform, we all get to learn uniformly from the legends, the best of the best teachers in our countries. So please I only sincere request to my juniors, please make the best use of these sessions. Present cases voluntarily come. Sir told, no, just like sir told, don't be hesitant to commit mistakes. Only those who are really keen to learn, only they'll make mistakes and they'll learn from their experiences. So my sincere request, please come up with more and more presentations, present to passionate teachers like Piyush sir, and learn in a better way. That's all my request. Okay, when we put force on him, then he'll be coming forward to teach. If you are reluctant, if you don't show interest, then he has much better work to do. See, look at his behind. Yes, so many books to his credit. He'll be writing many more books for us. So, but not just reading his books, we can directly interact with him also like this. So once again, we are extremely thankful on behalf of all the students from all the 3 countries, India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, to Piyush Gupta sir.
Thank you.
Please
Thank you,
bless us
Krishna.
and support us throughout, sir, like this. Whenever at your free time, convenient time, please take more and more classes for us.
Thank you,
Thank you
Krishna.
so much.
Thank you so
And
much.
also, Manish, nothing to get demotivated. You really did well. Okay, you really
It's a pediatric book. So all of them are either fiction or
No,
philosophical or novels, which I have just kept because I have to read them whenever I get
equal
a free
amount of.
time.
We understand how the
Okay,
life of a
thank
PG
you.
is. Okay, amidst the hectic schedule, busy working schedule, we have to prepare all those things. All of us understand really well. Okay, next again, come up with a very interesting cases, common cases, and present so that we all can learn through your better prepared presentations. And also, we thank Mr. Ravi, who is the main coordinator of this event. Also, Ms. Achal Burma for moderating this session. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, I would like to request Robbie to quickly give a short vote of thanks, as sir is in a hurry. So please make it quick.
Hello, sir. Hello, Dai. Hello, Kishan, sir. We learned a lot of things from today's webinar. Thanks a lot, sir, for your book during our posting, during our work. We learn a lot of things, and we will keep on doing. Thanks, Dai. Thanks, Manish Dai. Thanks, Kishan, sir, for giving us golden opportunity to learn from you. With this, I'd like to thank everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. I would once again like to thank Dr. Piyush Gupta for being present here despite his very busy schedule. I would again thank Dr. Manish for preparing the presentation despite a last moment notice. And it was a really enlightening session. I also thank the participants who made the session so much more interesting and interactive by writing the answers in the chat box. And we have participants from different countries, which is amazing.
Even Kenya, Achal, we have participants even from Kenya also.
Yes,
Okay.
I was going to mention that. Yeah, not only Nepal and Bangladesh, it's so good to have participants from Kenya as well. So we welcome you all. We'll be having subsequent sessions. You can know about it through our Viber group, and we have our Instagram page as well as our Facebook page, so you can go and check it out. You can like it, and we also shall be uploading these sessions in our YouTube channel, so kindly subscribe that channel as well. And thank you, everyone, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Manish. It was lovely being with you this evening. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Bye bye, and have a good day.
Thank you so much, sir.